Welcome to the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in critical times. Here's your host, Bill Kelly.
Welcome. This is the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in these critical times. I'm your host, Bill Kelly. Good to have you with us today. As we do this podcast, we await the decision and, of course, the announcement about Prime Minister Carney's new cabinet. And with that, of course, comes a lot of speculation and a lot of criticism, too, depending on which social media sites you seem to want to gravitate towards in these situations. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about why and the speculation about who, what, when, and where, size of cabinet, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we want to try to put this in an objective perspective as opposed to some of the very partisan issues and comments that I've heard from some of the others. First and foremost, of course, when he was sworn in as Prime Minister after becoming Liberal leader, Carney did announce a cabinet. It was let's face it, a wartime cabinet because he knew that there was an election imminent, so it was much smaller than Justin Trudeau's cabinet was. And he received an awful lot of criticism, saying, well, what about women's issues? What about this? What about and a whole lot of stuff like that? And essentially, I know these are legitimate concerns by certain groups within our population, but at the same time, I think people tended to lose focus of what was going on. Carney was heading towards an election. This was an election cabinet. In other words, lean and mean to try to get through the election, which they did, which is why when he makes the announcement later in just a couple of days, let's face it, everybody understands it's going to be a larger cabinet. Now, how much larger? Size matters, we're told, with provincial and federal cabinets, because, we're concerned about the cost of everything. Well, are we? Really? Really? I know that, when politicians decide that, and prime ministers and premiers decide to enlarge cabinets, invariably the critics are there and say, well, it's just going to cost us way too much. But does that really depend on the political stripe that you wear on your sleeves when you make those announcements? Stephen Harper had larger cabinets. Doug Ford here in Ontario, a conservative, progressive conservative premier, and has been for quite some time, has a very bloated cabinet. I mean, we've touched on the fact, I think, in great detail about how Ford is just outspending Kathleen Wynne more than she ever had imagined spending as a Liberal premier. And that's fine. I mean, the Conservative supporters seem to think that that's okay. Ford's cabinet, and he just recently revamped it, of course, after the last provincial election here in Ontario, is huge. I think just about everybody in Ford's caucus has either a cabinet position or a deputy position or a parliamentary assistant commission, all of which, of course, enhances their salaries and basically pumps them up into that level. And nobody's making a noise about that. There's not a peep of controversy about that from all the Ford supporters. So I suppose your idea about, what's the right size of cabinet really depends which political party's in power. I mean, the Conservatives, if it's a Conservative Prime Minister or a Conservative Premier doing it, that's okay. If it's a Liberal, all hell will break loose. So let's just, get over yourselves, okay? Carney is the Prime Minister. This is going to be his cabinet. The questions we should be asking are, is this going to be an effective and efficient cabinet? And that's where we should be focusing. So, which kind of leads us into the discussion about, well, who's going to be there? And again, when Carney became Prime Minister and he named his wartime cabinet, such as it was, a lot of people that had been in cabinet previously under the Trudeau regime were named, and the critics just jumped up and down and said, see, it's the same old, same old. It's just going to be Justin Trudeau all over again. Well, no, it's not. And no, it wasn't. And nor shall it be. Clearly, from the things that Prime Minister Carney has talked about and the goals that he has stated and the relationships that he's tried to establish, this is not Trudeau's cabinet. This is not going to be an extension of Justin Trudeau, thank God, as we move forward here in Canada. But I want to put this in perspective. We're into Stanley Cup playoff time. So, in Canada now, just about everybody's a hockey fan, right? Well, last year, at the end of last year, the Toronto Maple Leafs decided to part ways with their coach, Sheldon Keefe. A nice guy, pretty good coach, apparently, but not getting it done. So they decided, okay, you go your way and we'll go ours. And they ended up hiring Craig Berube as coach. But when they decided to do that, did they fire Austin Matthews? Did they fire Mitch Marner? Did they fire William Nylander? Or Morgan Riley? No, that would be stupid, wouldn't it? If you've got good people who are capable people, and you want to use them as the core for your team, you don't let them go. Because here's the deal, just as Matthews and Marner and everybody else, they are doing what their coach tells them to do. It's the coach that sets the game plan. Just as Justin Trudeau, as the Prime Minister, set the game plan for his Liberal government. And the ministers that were there are basically working within the parameters that the Prime Minister sets for them. And Stephen Harper did the same thing. Harper ruled with an iron fist. This is the way it's going to be. Yeah, you're the minister of whatever it is, but you're doing things my way, or you're not doing them at all. And that's the way politics works, just as it did for hockey. And by the way, as we know, this side, they hired a new coach, kept those core players, and bam, they finished in first place. We'll see how far that goes. We're hoping the same thing happens with this government. They were duly elected. They're the government for the next how many years? 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it's going to be. And there are capable people here that were doing things the way Trudeau wanted them done. Well, now there's a new boss. There's a new coach, a new captain, whatever you want to call it. And some of these people are very capable people that have done some pretty decent things, notwithstanding some of the, I think, rather strict parameters and maybe even wrong-headed parameters that Trudeau had put onto them. But people like Dominic LeBlanc and Ida Anand and Francois-Philippe Champagne, Melanie Joly, David McGuinty, longtime minister, these are good people that have a lot of talent. So don't simply dismiss them and say, well, get rid of them because they were part of the Trudeau team. If you're a Leaf fan, did you get rid of, as we said, the star players? Let them work within the system that Mark Carney has set up for them and let them shine. And if they don't, well, they won't last very long. But I think Carney has a pretty good eye for talent and understands exactly where he wants to go and the direction he wants to go. And I think those are the guiding principles that he's going to use. So don't be surprised. As a matter of fact, I'd be surprised if a lot of these people weren't in cabinet, because he wants the best possible people. I don't want some rookie sitting in foreign affairs trying to negotiate a new trade deal with the Trump administration. That would be stupid, wouldn't it? So why don't you lean on people like Dominic LeBlanc and others that have been there, done that, and first of all have established relationships? That only makes political sense, and that's what we want, the best possible people. So watch for that when they make the announcement. The LeBlancs, the Anands, and Champagnes and others, they're going to be there in some capacity or another. Chrystia Freeland, that's another story. She was the finance minister, of course, the deputy prime minister under Justin Trudeau, and joined at the hip, really. And she was the lead negotiator in the first NAFTA renegotiation. We can talk about just how efficient that was. But the bottom line is this. We're about to head into another series of negotiations with the Trump administration. And he doesn't like, nor does he trust, Chrystia Freeland. So if we want to have any success in these negotiations, she can't be part of it. That's all there is to it. Now, I understand that Prime Minister Carney and Chrystia Freeland are very good friends and have been for quite some time, and she's a very capable individual, but I don't think she belongs in a key position, certainly not in finance, certainly not in international trade. There may be and probably will be room for her somewhere in cabinet, but not in the front bench, not in one of those key elements. So we'll see how that rolls out in the next little while. And as to the size of it, it's interesting how the speculation out of Ottawa seems to be that, it's going to be larger, or is it? What Carney is proposing to do is basically have an A team of senior cabinet ministers in key portfolios, foreign affairs and things of that nature, and finance certainly, that are going to meet on a regular basis. But then he's going to have a secondary cabinet, ministers of state in charge of whatever it's going to be. And they don't need to meet as often, and they don't need to be at the table for some of these other discussions. And that makes all kinds of sense. I know that some people are saying, well, he's just borrowing that from what the British parliaments have done. Yeah, they do. But so, past prime ministers in this country have set up cabinets like that too. It makes, I think, for a much more efficient system. And we'll see how that rolls out. And that allows him to look for some of these other portfolios that people wanted to see included, women's issues and things of this nature, Indigenous issues, and how those are going to be filled. Now, we can speculate day and night as to who might fill those spots, and there has to be a blend. Obviously, there's a gender equity situation here that I think has to be maintained, and I know Prime Minister Carney wants to have addressed as well. But there are others. There are new faces, obviously, some people that won very, very important elections around the country that may or may not be part of the Carney cabinet. Corey Hogan is a Calgary MP now, who, let's face it, with what's going on in Alberta these days, having representation in cabinet from Alberta and from the Western provinces is going to be key. So somebody like Hogan, Buckley Belanger, who is from Saskatchewan. Liberals haven't had a Saskatchewan minister since Ralph Goodale, who's a very good minister, finance minister, and a number of other portfolios. He's in the diplomatic service now. We're in England now, representing the government. But, a Saskatchewan member, not just an MP, but a member of parliament and a member of cabinet makes all kinds of sense. There are other people, too. And Evan Solomon, former broadcaster, star candidate in the Toronto area. Does he find a role in cabinet? I don't know. But there's lots of positions to fill, lots of people, very capable people, that could be included in this. including, by the way, some of the people that Carney worked with at the Bank of Canada who have financial expertise. And let's not lose track of that we are in a financial crisis. And to have people at the table and around that cabinet table who have expertise in finances, global finances, and have seen the problems that we're facing these days makes all kinds of sense, as opposed to a bunch of rookies that have no idea how to address some of these issues. So I'd see that that's going to be happening too. And I know that no matter what Carney talks about, and no matter who he names on Tuesday to this cabinet, the wolves are going to be out. That, well, it's same old, etc. And I don't see any evidence of that. And what bothers me, and I hope bothers most of us, is again the partisan sniping that's going on now. It's a Liberals government, so they shouldn't even be there. It's their fourth term. They got voted in. I know people were well aware that it was a fourth government. People were tired of the Liberal government. They were sure tired of Justin Trudeau. But, we have turned the page. The election is over. Carney is not Trudeau. And if you can't see that, well, then you're simply being blind by the partisan blinders that you've got on now. He's a different guy and a different approach to government. And we want to see the team that he's going to put together here and just how that's going to affect what's going to happen here. Well, there's an opportunity here for us to, I think, move forward here economically, the tariff issue with Trump, to have some smart people, some intelligent people that are basically taking a different path. I mean, if you can just get away from the partisan issues and the hate that some people just seem to have for anybody who's a liberal, and look at what's going on here, there are chances here for us to really move forward here as a country. Carney's already talked about this. Yeah, the negotiations with Trump and his administration are going to be very important. But from day one, Carney said, yeah, we're going to pursue that. But at the same time, we have to look at other markets. And there was a statistic that came out the other day that didn't get a whole lot of media attention, sadly, is that, when the Trump tariffs came into place, we took a hit economically here. And so did industry. And so did, our trade deficits and our trade surpluses in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. But because we have made agreements and reached out to Europe, Scandinavia, the Far East, and India, we're almost at the point where we've made up for some of those deficits. Now, we're not on easy street by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a guy that knows finances, and he knows international markets, and he's playing the cards that we're supposed to play. Remember that analogy, well, we don't have the cards. Yeah, we do have the cards, and we got somebody at the table who knows how to play the cards. So let's just cut the crap. If you're just going to say, well, it's a Liberal prime minister, so it's going to be bad, get over yourself, okay? You're part of the problem if that's your attitude. If he does something wrong, yes, he deserves to be criticized, and there needs to be oversight in just about everything that's going on. And he knows that. This is not a rookie. This is a guy that's been there. He's been in the international markets. And this is the team that he wants to put in place. This is the inner circle that he wants to have around him to try to move forward. I'm very interested to see who this is going to include, what portfolios they're going to be given, and the marching orders that they're going to be given. And that's really what it comes down to. And it all comes up to the guy at the top or the woman at the top if we ever get around to electing a female prime minister. I'm hoping that's going to happen someday. But anyway, that's another issue that we'll get into sometime. But the whole element here is that we want a team that's going to be working for Canada and working for the goals that we've talked about. Yeah, we've got an Alberta problem, as we talked about in a past podcast. But you know what? If we have that discussion around the table, if there's Alberta representation at the cabinet table, maybe that creates a bond. Maybe that creates a pipeline of conversation and dialogue with the people of Alberta. Even if the premier is off doing whatever the hell she does, it's the people of Alberta that you want to reach out to. And that probably is a lot easier done if you have an Albertan in the cabinet. Those are the sorts of decisions that Carney is going to have to make over the next couple of days, and we hope that they're going to be successful. He's got a chance here to do what other prime ministers haven't had a chance to do because of the representation he's got from coast to coast to coast, that he can have some regional representation in some of these key cabinet positions, and that's a good thing going forward. So let's keep an open mind about this. Let's see who's there. Let's not simply dismiss somebody because, well, they were part of the old team, because that's a silly, silly idea, and it's a very myopic approach to politics. We want good people that have capabilities in the portfolios that need that sort of direction and that kind of push. And there are people there that have worked in government before that are like that. Now, there are some that worked in past governments that probably are going to get shoved aside. That happens too, but that's up to the prime minister. So we will wait. We will talk about the decision certainly after the Prime Minister makes his announcements early this week and see just what kind of team the Prime Minister is putting forward here to try to address some of these incredible challenges that we're facing, economic and so many other challenges that we're facing, regional disparity. You know, the fact that there's some parts of this country that feel as if they were wrong done by the previous Prime Minister. Those need to be addressed. But as Dominic LeBlanc mentioned, he was on with Vashi Kapelos on CTV over the weekend on one of the political shows and basically said, this is not business as usual. And LeBlanc, he said, I worked with the previous guy and I've worked for a short time here with Carney. This is not the way things were done in the past. Well, I hope he's right. As a matter of fact, I got a pretty good feeling that he's right. And as soon as people, I think, wake up to that this is a different approach and a different guy, we got an idea here to really move forward and get some things done. Economically, regional concerns, international trade, provincial trade, so many things on the plate right now. So let's get over the anger, let's get over the partisanship, and let's just focus. I mean, we kept talking, and Prime Minister Carney has mentioned this dozens of times. We are stronger when we're together. All right. Regional differences, the pettiness and the partisanship is really what's tearing us apart right now. So let's set that aside and let's wait and see how we can work together to try to move forward on it. And first step is to find out who's going to be on that team, because they're the ones that are going to carry the ball for the Prime Minister. And we look forward to those decisions. And we look forward to your input into that as we go forward. And of course, your comments and your suggestions on that as well. That is this edition for the Bill Kelly Podcast. We're, of course, on Substack. We're Spotify, Apple, certainly on YouTube, and so many other different platforms right now. We're just overwhelmed by the response that we're getting and the comments that we're getting. Pro and con, and this is what we talked about right from the beginning of this podcast. This is all about dialogue. And if you've got contrary opinions or you think that we should be going in a different direction or the Prime Minister should be, I still want to hear that, because we want civil discourse here, which seemed to be in short supply for quite some time. I hope we're over that hump, and certainly we want you to be part of that as well. So let's keep it going. Thanks as always to Madeline Kelly for the great work producing the podcast. I'm Bill Kelly. Until next time, stay in touch and stay informed.
Bill Kelly Podcast brought to you by Wizen's Law, personal injury lawyers. Listen, you didn't choose to get injured, but you can choose the right lawyer. Wizen's Law, 905-522-1102 or wizenslaw.com.